Alright, he's gonna attack over a token. That's fine. What level are these tokens? Level 4, right? Cool. Why? So the ban list dropped yesterday and a lot of cards were hit, some things were more surprising than others, etc, etc. Now I've already done a bit of an in-depth analysis of sorts with the podcasty thing earlier today that was uploaded, so check that out for some more in-depth thoughts. But these are some cards that I think that just were not addressed by the ban list and probably should have been addressed in some capacity. So in no particular order, and of course disclaimer, this is, opinions, etc, etc, so feel free to disagree, etc, constructively. But let's begin with anti-spell. So anti-spell, floodgates in general, none of these things were addressed and none of these things were hit, and I find that very, very frustrating. And it's actually a video that I'm going to be doing at some point soon this week. But it's basically like, I don't find floodgates very fun to play against at all. I think from a design perspective and from an actual health of the game perspective, I find floodgates to be just extremely counterintuitive to what makes a game actually fun. And I think that something as crippling as anti-spell just really shouldn't be in the game, and especially when this card becomes so abusable by, for example, Altergeist, and obviously, True Draco still being somewhat of a meta deck, despite the hits and stuff to Masterpiece. I think that this card really, really should have been addressed. I personally do not mind, Amano Awato, but anti-spell specifically is something that is just really unfun to play against, very frustrating, and it's not something that I think should be in a game, especially with the way it interacts with the pendulum mechanic. The next card is Max C. And I've done a whole thing dedicated to this, and I guess if you've seen that, you probably know what my thoughts are on this. And personally, I just find that, looking at some OCG videos of their duels and stuff between Brandish and things like that, their games actually look way more fun with Maxi involved than it does without. And I just think that, with the deck like this Goki nonsense that just extra links you turn one is absolutely insane. So just having more cards to stop that, because obviously that deck didn't get addressed at all. Obviously I guess they just want to sell some product and stuff with the Goki things, but it is really just, it's basically an FTK. It's honestly, it's the closest thing you get to an FTK ever, and that wasn't addressed at all. That's probably going to be a very serious deck, and without a Maxi in the game, it's going to feel very, very frustrating to play against that deck, and you're going to have to opt for more lackluster hand traps. You might even be looking at something like Ghost Reaper in the main or something for the Goki deck, and it just depends on how popular it is. It's just, I don't think those kind of decks should exist. I really don't think they should, and Maxi, I feel like, helps curb that kind of nonsense from the game. The next card, which kind of ties into the last message as well, which is Firewall Dragon. Now, I don't know if it's because it's an anime card, because it's the protagonist's boss monster, whatever kind of nonsensical argument that is completely irrelevant to the actual health of the game aside. This card is absurd. Is absolutely absurd. I don't think I need to explain why. Anything you have ever seen on YouTube, from all the ridiculous combos, consistent or not is not the point, but any just stupid thing, just dumb, crazy shenanigans you've seen on YouTube, have Firewall Dragon at the root of it. It is always at the root of everything terrible and everything just absurd and broken. One firewall doesn't really do anything. Obviously, multiple firewalls and stuff, I guess you could do some really crazy stuff with this, but one firewall is more than enough, because it doesn't have a once per turn clause. It doesn't say that, this card can only be used once that turn and only that turn. It's not even once per turn per copy. It is just a card that lets you special summon from your hand constantly every time you extra link something it points to. It's every time you link something away that it points to. I really don't see how this thing is okay. Now, as far as pushing new support and stuff, I don't know much about the Goki deck. I haven't played it at all, but from my discussions with people and from querying around, apparently the deck actually isn't even unplayable without Fireball. It's actually still somewhat decent without Firewall. So having Firewall banned, which is something that needs to happen at some point. At some point, that will have to happen. They could have just they could have just went down that route, and their new deck that sells product or whatever would have been able to function in the meta just as fine. I mean, maybe not just as fine, but apparently, it wouldn't be the worst thing ever. So, like I said, degenerate combos, just insane, stupid, nuts things, always have Firewall Dragon at the root of it, and I would like this card to just have been banned, and it's something that they just did not address in any shape or form in this list. They completely ignored the absurdity that is, this extra link can't be targeted or destroyed mega board with 12,000 damage on board. Like, they just did not address that at all. The next card on the list is Card of Demise. It's hard to really say because to an extent I think that this card is alright, but I just think that some decks just have so much synergy with it, and it's mostly just because of True Draco. Now, I think that this card is generally fine when not in True Draco, but it just seems to have so much synergy surrounding that True Draco deck specifically. So I think that with True Draco still in the meta, still in the fray because of the ban list not really, killing it off or anything like that, this card is just really, really, really strong. It's able to just refill your entire hand after you've just popped things and, basically gone neg through the, if you're going first and stuff with True Draco. So it restocks your hand and then gives you the potential to draw into Desires, and then you have even more cards, and it cuts your deck further and further down to find your Floodgates, which, going back to the first point, none of which were addressed. So all of that in tandem I think just lets True Draco be this really annoying stun deck with a fairly consistent and pretty good engine that is just able to deal with like lots of different scenarios and situations, and just interacts really well with itself. So Demise not being addressed in any shape or form, I think, is something that had to have happened, but it's also something that maybe it's one or the other. I probably wouldn't expect them, to hit Floodgates and Demise together, and I wouldn't expect them to hit Demise and Floodgates together. I mean, I would prefer Floodgates, but, realistically, I don't think it's going to be happen where they would just do both. So it would be one or the other, and I would prefer the Floodgates, but, Demise is something that they probably should have considered. Next card is Scapegoat, and this card is really, really crazy now with just as links keep growing and growing, the different options you have available to you. So long as they keep making link monsters, this card will probably only just get better and better, because you're just able to just make these link spiders or proxy or whatever, and then just link climb further higher and higher and higher. One card Borreload is still an insanely good monster. With your engine combined with Scapegoat, you're probably able to do some nonsense things with Troymares and stuff, and that's just a generic link archetype thing for your extra deck that anyone can use and abuse. So like I said, like the stronger links get, the more they make of them, the more they print, the stronger this card is going to get. And I think perhaps maybe with the inception of the Troymares, it was probably time that this card be addressed in some capacity. Now, I don't think I would really associate this with, Trickstar or anything. I would just associate just as in general, regardless of the deck that runs it. Obviously, Trickstar are the most notable for it. It just does way too much for one card. It just does so much off of one single card. Now, albeit it is quite slow because you have to set it and wait a turn, but with the meta that we're coming up against next, with Brandish and stuff, full power, crazy nuts combo Brandish is never going to do more than like 2,000 damage in a turn. So it's going to be quite a slower game. We've got Altergeist as a meta deck, so it is going to be quite slow. And this thing can just be like, it won't feel that slow in a meta with trap cards and back and forth interactivity like that. So it's able to just be a complete blowout sometimes. Next card is Droll Lockbird, and this thing is really not so much like that big of a problem. And again, I don't think Trickstar is that much of a problematic deck. It gets about like 3 tops per event on average last format with the previous ban list. So the deck is pretty okay. It's not like the worst thing ever. It's definitely consistent, and it's able to just do well at major events, which is, fine and stuff. I personally don't feel it did anything particularly unfair. But the Droll Reincarnation interaction, I think, is just really and I don't know how that can be in the game. I really it's so stupid. Now, it doesn't happen as often as you think, and you're able to stop it with Ash Blossom and stuff if you've drawn it, but at which point does it you can't play around it? It's not like you can just never search your deck, because you're just at that point your deck isn't doing anything. So, you know, if they just have the draw, they have the draw. You lose your whole hand. It's really, really frustrating. And I just think that, you know, the deck is more than capable of winning without this silly interaction. So I don't see why this was necessary. Now, a lot of people will say things like, oh, I want reincarnation banned, and or I want reincarnation limited, and I'm just like, the deck's fine. It's not really overpowered. But this one interaction, I think, is just really, really bad game design, and I would have liked to have seen draw completely removed. And finally, with Exciton Knight, yes, I've done another video on this one before, just as much as I have done one on Max C, and it's a card that I think that for the longest time I thought probably should stay banned, but as time goes on, as these decks that just have this like extra link nonsense and stuff, I just think something like Exciton would be able to like help you be able to actually deal with these boards going second and stuff. Obviously you'd need to draw like, I don't know, freaking sphere mode and shit to deal with that Goki deck, but considering that we're going into like a more resource based format, a more advantage based format, you're going to be really counting your cards and stuff with brandish mirrors and things like that, and just against brandish variants, it's going to be a lot more technical and stuff. And I just think that having something like Exciton brings about a lot more thought into the game and brings out a lot more being a lot more conservative with your plays, and it probably kind of makes going first a lot weaker as well, which is something that going second really needs. I don't think the one more card advantage you get for going second is enough to warrant decks, the opportunity to go second. People will just always go first in this game. So I think that having something like Exciton in the game would be able to create, give you the opportunity to maybe build decks to go second and just have a better chance to go second. So that's why I think Exciton would have been nice to have back in the game. At one, just 1 or 3 probably really doesn't make a difference for Exciton, but yeah, I would have liked to have seen this card come back. And so that does it for the complete rundown here. Let me know in the comments what you think about this, and was there anything else that was unaddressed or not really dealt with this ban list? Let me know and comment below. And also, if you enjoy the content, if you enjoy the channel, make sure to subscribe and comment and like and share, etc. Maybe consider becoming a Patreon on Patreon if you really want to help this thing keep going. And make sure to check out my live streams and stuff. So follow my Twitch or even subscribe there with a free Twitch Prime account. And until next time, farewell.